My name is Paul Luna, and you're tuned into F&B Lunacy. I am here today with Luis Martinez, chef owner of My Abuela's Food. Chef Luis, talk to us about My Abuela's Food, where you are located, the inspiration behind it.
I'm going to start with the inspiration first, and then I'll tell you where I'm located. Inspiration, I think it started when I was born. I think it's a collection of memories, concepts, ideas that I've always had on food. As I grew up, I spent a lot of time with my grandmothers, hence the name My Abuela's. And I'm a learner from watching other people. I learn from watching. That's my my learning preference, I guess, or teaching, or whatever, however you want to say that. But I learn from them, and I collect memories and thoughts, and my head just continues to collect. And through my career, I always cook, and I bring people to my house, and I love cooking for big parties, and it's just been a thing that has been going on since I was a very young kid. And all my family always told me I would own a restaurant, or I would end up being a chef. And I had a list of things that I've always wanted to do, and I attacked most of those. I still have about 3 things that I still have on my list, but I did go through my career path in the way that I had envisioned my life, and met my end. And at my end, I ended up cooking. So it started as a pop-up between my sister and I, and we popped up around Atlanta, Georgia for 2 years. So we took over restaurants and popped up and cooked. We were the first Puerto Rican pop-up in the city of Atlanta. And from day one, it was just magical. Like, people would just come up, and I started at my favorite restaurant in the city called Dish Dive, no longer exists due to the pandemic. And it was a very special place. I created so many memories there. And for me to be cooking in that kitchen was just magical, honestly. It started there, and then kept looking for spaces that meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to my sister at that time. And then we would pop there and create menus and themes, and it was like an experience. During that time, I did a pop-up at Spindle, which is where I am now, and we're in Atlanta. And we created a bond at that pop-up that we did. And in November of 2018, I called Ez, which is the owner of the Spindle, and I was going to ask him a question about another dinner that I was doing. And on that call, he was like, "Hey man, I'm looking for somebody to take over the kitchen." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And I was working full time. I worked for a nonprofit at that time. And I switched my life in 3 months. I quit my job, called a bunch of people, kind of just, it was crazy. But from November to February, I quit my job and opened a restaurant in 3 months. I also was away for a month during that time, got engaged, experienced earthquakes in Puerto Rico. I mean, it was just a crazy 3 months, but I sort of like, it was from November 2019 to January of 2020 that I flipped my life around and started a restaurant, built up the restaurant, painted. It was insane. And we opened February 29th, and then we closed our doors March 17th. Due to the pandemic. But you know what? We're still here. We closed our doors, and Jeff from Dish Dive told me, "You cannot close. If you close, you're going to lose." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "You can't close your restaurant. You have to just open. Do whatever you need to do, but never close." And it was one of the best advices as a business owner. And I didn't close. We closed for 2 weeks to re-strategize and open up a website and do all that. And a year and a half later, we're still here.
What do you enjoy doing when you're not working?
When I'm not working, I'm working. I'm always working. No, I'm always working. I do have other businesses that I manage outside of the restaurant. I have 3 other businesses that I own. And so I do work basically my entire life. However, I also learned through the pandemic to really just chill out. And I did. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was like really just going crazy. And before the pandemic, I had been going on for a good 7 years without stopping. I had worked 3 jobs to be able to save up to do what I do now. I worked 7 days a week, literally would not sleep. I created a beer festival. I created a restaurant. I worked for a nonprofit. I traveled the world. It was kind of crazy. I was on the go for a good 6 years. And when the pandemic hit, it hit me very hard just because me as a person, I don't stop. And then during the pandemic, I really have re-strategized my whole being. And now I can answer this question in a more truthful way. And I can say that, Mondays and Tuesdays for me are like my day to kind of work from home and then do something that I love. I spend a lot of time with my partner. I spend a lot of time with my dogs. I love to collect art and hikes, kayaking, pool, a lot of outdoor stuff. And I like to treat myself and eat the food that I want to eat. Everything So yes, I will treat myself probably once a week to dine at location that I really just want to eat at and just go all in, yes.
Do you have an opportunity to cook at home for your partner?
I cook every day, besides Fridays, Saturdays, and Thursdays. Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. But every other day I cook. Yeah, after this call, I'm gonna go cook dinner. Yeah.
Is he a tough critic?
He's a great cook. He's actually working in the other room, but he's a great cook, and we both cook. But like I said, cooking is just part of what I do. Even when my friends come over, if we're in the kitchen, I'm opening up a cupboard to start making something. It's just my thing, So it doesn't feel like added work. It just feels like it's just part of who I am.
What's important, taste or food presentation?
That's a really hard, complicated question. And I'll tell you what. There's a beauty. I struggle as a chef. Number one, I'm not a trained chef. I literally just cooked at my house and now I own a restaurant. But I love food and I have a passion for food. And I have a passion for food due to its history and what it means and where it comes from. And the amount of hands that touch each ingredient that we end up consuming is unbelievable. It doesn't matter if it's a commodity item to something that is farm to table. The amount of hands that touch each ingredient you cannot express or explain the process that food goes through before it gets to us. So as I grew up, I have been able to have I've been privileged, and I've also seen what non-privileged looks like as I grew up. And that is literally what I can answer to this question. So there's a idea that food has to be presented in a certain way. However, when I grew up, and the food that I admire the most and the food that I will forever admire the most is the meals that my grandmothers would make. They no longer cook. And it wasn't about presentation. It was about the process. And then it was about the setting of you sitting at a table. And then it was about the cycle of conversation that you ended up memorizing, which was, do you want to eat? Let me serve you. Bunch of food on your plate. Come back around. Did you like the food? Do you want more food? Then you say no, but it's still a yes. Then more food. And it was never presented in a beautiful way. But the memory is much more beautiful than a $300 plate at whatever restaurant you can say. And that food has more value to me than a $200 4-ounce steak on a plate. And that's where I struggle. I struggle between an experience and a memory that is just attached to your being compared to just paying a $300 bill at a restaurant and walking away, and you created the memory with the people that you went to, but the food didn't make anything for you. And I think that that is the difference. And that's what I can say. I don't know which one it is.
Is there an item you recommend at the restaurant?
Yes. The whole menu. I'm kidding. No. There's a few things that I'm really proud about. I think our vegan options are, you know, I'm a pescatarian. I cook 100% by smell. I have not eaten land animals since I was 18 years old, and I'm 33 now. So there's math that has to be done there. But I haven't tasted meat. I just remember the smells, and I cook by smells. And even when you take me to a restaurant and I try another meal, I can tell you what ingredients are in that meal just by smelling it, sort of God. But the vegan options that we have been able to come up with are something that I'm very proud of. They really, truly are almost like eating the regular version. And that makes me very proud. And so with that being said, we have a pork sandwich that we do, Mr. Pig. That's the number one selling item on the menu. And we also have a vegan Mr. Pig. And that vegan Mr. Pig is made with roasted jackfruit that we roast the same way that I roast my pork. The exact same process I do with that jackfruit. And that one, I have to say, I'm very proud of. Yeah.
What type of music do you enjoy listening to?
Everything. I sort of like it. The only thing I don't care for is country music. I don't. It doesn't speak to me. It doesn't speak to me, and then it just ends up being very traumatic for me. But no. I like everything. I come from a very musically inclined background. Music is my passion for life. It's everything to me. If I had a choice, I would have been in a rock like band, and I tried it. It didn't work for me. But music is everything. I listen to everything from, Britney Spears, but then I listen to reggaeton, and then tempo, and then I listen to Tiziano Ferro from, Laura Pausini, and then I listen to rock, Spanish rock, English rock, salsa, merengue, bachata. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff.
Willie Colon or Hector Lavoe?
Hector Lavoe. They're both great, though. They're both great. I've had the chance to meet Willie Colon. That was beautiful. But Hector Lavoe. His trajectory and the only reason is because I am also a fan of pop culture. And Hector Lavoe is pop culture. He created a cinematic way about himself. He created an aesthetic that we still use every day. He created a fashion movement that we continue to adore to the day. And not on top of that, he created a music that we use for everything. He created a sound. He created a movement, the yelling, that even when salsa singers will say their name in the middle of the song, or Oye Lola, all that stuff is him. And he created the whole vibe, and we still use it today.
Is there a particular food item you eat that is embarrassing?
My personal food choices are embarrassing. But I think that goes for any chef, to be honest with you. I mean, if I had to choose my favorite foods, so I can eat for the rest of my life, all of them are quite embarrassing.
Fill in the blank. Cooking is?
It's art.
What does playing with yourself mean to you?
Oh boy. Besides the obvious, I don't want to say the sentence, but I do what you ask me every day, because without the actual meaning of it, it also means just discovering yourself. And I do that all the time. You know, I think that we have different characters inside of us that we have to discover. And the older you get, you start being more comfortable with those characters, and those characters can come to life. And some of those characters are here to stay, and some are here to not stay. And I think that that's playing with your human, that's playing with your chakras and your energy, just to discover those things. So, yeah.
What places would you recommend for one traveling to Puerto Rico?
My favorite place in Puerto Rico is the rainforest, or Yunque. And as you go up, there is an array of food that you can just like eat away. I would probably eat on the way down, not on the way up, because you will probably give it back to Puerto Rico. But as you come down the mountain, there's tons of delicious food, cold coconuts, fried food, people standing outside, music, beer, and it's my favorite place in the entire island.
If I'm not mistaken, is there a Puerto Rican beer currently available in Atlanta, Georgia?
Mine?
Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, we have two beers. We have El Velorio, which El Velorio is a coffee chocolate porter. El Velorio means the wake. It is inspired and dedicated to the resilience that the Puerto Rican people had after Maria, and still have to this day, to continue their journey and to continue to grow and strengthen themselves as a country to be present. And our second beer is called La Fria, the cold one. Cold one is a crisp lager, and it's dedicated to my father, and it's also dedicated to a few men that have in my life that have meant a lot to me. And it's just a crisp lager. And when you're little in Puerto Rico, the term La Fria means like, go grab me a beer from a cooler. And this is a very usual thing. This is not if you are a kid in Puerto Rico, you've heard that before. And that's where the name came from, and that's where the term.
What drove that inspiration?
La Fria? It's I don't know, I think the quickest way, when you're younger, when I was a young kid, the idea of being accepted in a bubble of adults meant a lot, because you're looking up to them. And the moment that an adult asks you or trusts you to go get them a beer from the fridge, that means that like you're in. So you know, it just stuck with me. And even if I was watching a TV show the other day, and they weren't talking about my beer, but they used the term Damuna Fria. And it's just part of our culture. And it got me excited, because that's what it is. The name is supposed to be representative of a moment in our lives that we've all heard as a Puerto Rican person. So,
what is your management style like?
Growing. I'm learning. So I've been a manager since I was 16 years old, and I'm still learning. It's a continuous learning process.
What do you think of the current employment situation with front of the house, back of the house, not returning to work? What is your take?
I applaud them, and I think that they are doing the right thing. I've worked in the hospitality industry since I was 16 years old. I left the hospitality industry and still had a second job in the hospitality industry, because it's something that you love. And when people are part of the hospitality industry, you have to understand that they're there not only because it's a job, but for the most part, they love being there. It's not the job, it's the relationship that you start creating with yourself, with your team members, as well as the people that continue to come in. And it becomes a family. And for people to not want to come back to work speaks very highly of the dangers of our industry. And I applaud them to not come back, and don't come back until we change and we do better because obviously we suck. So
Can you give us a little secret of a good empanada?
you have to really stew the protein in the inside. I have cooked with some people that just throw things on a pot, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. You know, take your time, really understand what's going inside of this empanadilla, because what's inside is really gonna be your flavor explosion that you get when you bite into it. And you have to kind of slow down, think about the ingredients, let them simmer, let them stew. Don't just like put salt and pepper, create something else. That is my biggest advice for anyone.
Do you consider yourself a lunatic?
Yes. Yes.